Are on Eruvin Daf Yud Gimel. Rabbi Kiva Omer al Zev Nechleku. That Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued also even less than Arba Amos, whether you need a lechi or koy. So the Tana Kama had also started off by saying that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel basically argue whether you need a lechi and a koreh versus a lechi and a koreh, and didn't give any specific sizes of the entrance. So basically, what is Rabbi Kiva adding to the Tana Kama? Because remember, we had a statement by Rav Achlai that a mavui less than 4 tfachim, everyone agrees, doesn't need anything. So one of the we have Tana Kama and Rabbi Kiva. One of them. Rashi says, "Chad minai islay de barba, u'narbar l'malapligi, v'vos marga ein tzarach klum." One of them says, agrees with Rav Achlai that the opening of a mouth is less than 4 tefachim doesn't need anything, and the other does not agree. V'lo mesaimi, we don't know which one agreed, which one did not agree. Susie, could you close that? 1 second. Okay. Tanya Rabbi Kiva. Lo Rabbi Shmuel davar zeh. So Rabbi Kiva makes a statement that I know that Rabbi Shmuel is a huge Talmid Chacham, and he never would have said such a thing. Ela also Talmid Omer davar zeh. A certain Talmid said it, and the halacha is also Talmid. So the Gemara says, I don't know how gufa kasha. There's something contradictory. Amrit lo am Rabbi Shmuel davar zeh. You just came to dispute that Rabbi Shmuel had never said it. Must be Amalas Ilchas Kavosei. Therefore, the halacha is not like that. Hadar Amar halacha goes to Talmud. Well, what is that all about? Rabbi Kiva wanted his Talmidim to jump up and be sharp and understand, to also do svara like this Talmud did. So he praised them. But not necessarily because the halacha was either like him or not like him. Now, the Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Amar, Rabbi Kiva didn't say halacha ka'osa Talmud, but nearing itmar, that he thinks it might be like that. Okay, Amar Yeshua ben Levi. Kol mokom shata moitze mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amar Tamid Echad of Rabbi Kiva. In Shas, whenever we have this phraseology, in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, who said it, and that a certain Talmud had said it in front of Rabbi Kiva, Eino Ela Rab Meir. That Talmud is Rab Meir. Shashimish at Rabbi Shmuel, the Es Rabbi Akiva. Rab Meir studied both under Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya on Rab Meir. Kishayiti it's Rabbi Shmuel. Rab Meir was a soifer, and he recounts that when he was studying with Rabbi Shmuel, Hayisi matil kan kantum l'toch adyo. Kan kantum was an additive to ink. Rashi says adramint, that made it unerasable. You couldn't erase it. V'lo amar li davar, and he didn't have any problem with that. Kishabati it's Rabbi Kiva. Now, after a time, I left Rabbi Shmuel. I started learning Rabbi Kiva. Asra alai, he prohibited me to use the kankantum. So the Gemara says, Amy, none of this is correct. It was just the opposite. That when I was studying with Rabbi Kiva, I used to use this kankantum in my ink, and he didn't have a problem with it. Rabbi Shmuel asked me, what is my profession? Amarti lo lav lorani. I'm a soifer. Amar li bni, You should be very careful with your work. Your work involves heavenly things. You leave one word out, or add an extra word. Rashi says, Hashem Elokim Emet. Now, if he leaves the aleph off the word Emet, he's going to say Hashem Elokim Met. So that creates theology problems. He gives another example, Rashi, Vayidaber Hashem. If he added a letter Vav to the Vayidaber, it would be Vayidabru. So again, it's a problem because of heretical concepts. So he told him, be careful. You're going to destroy the whole world. So Rav Meir Amarti Lo, I responded to his warning, Dover Echad Yeshli. In my toolkit, I have a thing called Kankantum, Shmo. Shani Matil Tochadyo, I put it in the ink, period. Omar Li V'chimatil Katam Tochadyo. So Rabbi Shmuel said you can't put Kankantum in the ink. V'lo Amra Torah V'kosav Umocha. When a husband suspects his wife of infidelity, and he warns her not to sequester in a room with a certain person, he designates who the person is, you shouldn't sequester yourself. So that warning has to happen in front of Eidim. Then two Eidim come and they see the two people sequestered in the room. We don't know what's going on in that room, but that basically fulfills the sota requirement. Now the husband is usher to live with his wife until he because there's a suffix, maybe she was mizana tachta, maybe she is an adulteress. Meaning, if you had Eidim that actually saw the Maisa Bia, so of course she's taken out and killed, and of course the husband can't live with her. But this is a doubt. We don't know what's going on. It's a suffix. So the suffix is resolved by the husband taking her up to the Beis Hamikdash. They take a parsha sota, and they dissolve it in water, and she has to drink it. And if she's innocent, the Gemara tells us that she was blessed with a male child if she got pregnant. And if she was guilty, then she dies. Her stomach blows up and all of that stuff. Now, the Torah says, Kosav umocha. You write the parsha and then you erase it. Now, if you use ink that cannot be erased, you can't fulfill the Kosav umocha. Ksav sheyachol limchos. It's got to be a ksav that is capable of being erased. Now, the Gemara doesn't, I mean, Rabbi Shmuel told him, you know what, be careful. Don't write extra letters and don't leave certain letters out. And then Rav Meir responds, oh, I have a certain thing that I put in my ink. How is that a response to what Rabbi Shmuel said? You don't have to worry about me regarding writing extra letters or removing letters that need to be there, because I'm an expert. I've studied laws of Safrut, and I know the Psukim well. I'm not going to make a mistake there. Now, now, what about if a sofer is writing and a fly lands on one of the letters and picks up the ink on its legs and flies away? Dilma Osav Yosef Atnei Dedalis Umochle Umashvile Reish. The fly, the difference between a dalit and a reish is just that little thing in the corner in the dalit that extends beyond the vertical stick. If the fly erases that, you can end up with a reish. So, in response to that, Dover Echad Yeshli, I have a certain ingredient that I add to the ink, V'kankantum shmo, shanimat l'toch hadyo, and therefore it's unerasable. And the fly cannot remove the ink. Still says the more kasha shimush hashimush kasha asra asra. The two brises are contradictory. One says he was Meshamesh Rabbi Kiva, and one says he was Meshamesh Rabbi Shmuel, and one said that it was Rabbi Kiva who answered, and the other brise says it was Rabbi Shmuel who answered. So what's the problem? So Bishul Meshimush Hashimush Lakasha, he really studied under both of them. Meikara Asla Kamed Rabbi Kiva. Reb Meir's first Rebbe was Rabbi Kiva. So you can see how critical the chain is here. We know that when Rabbi Kiva died 135 CE. That was the Hadrianic persecutions, the Bar Kokhba War. So it's 135 CE. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the author of the Mishnah, according to most chronologies, lived about 180 CE. He corresponded with Marcus Aurelius, the Roman, he was an emperor, author of the Ethics, the Meditations, and many feel that he got a lot of those thoughts from Rebbe. So then Rab Meir is this bridge between Rabbi Akiva and Rebbe, right? So Rab Meir is living, 150, 160 CE, and Rebbe learned under Rab Meir. And therefore, Stam Mishnah, when we say an anonymous Mishnah in Shas is Rab Meir, we're basically saying it's Rabbi Akiva. So the source of Torah Shabbal Peh really flows through Rabbi Akiva. Through Rabbi Akiva, through Rab Meir, and from Rab Meir to Rebbe. That's a very important link there. So he first studied under Rabbi Akiva. Now Rabbi Akiva was a very sharp thinker. Because I'll say that he, with logic, could make it sound chayiv, make it sound potter, or he could say tameh, or he could say tohor. And therefore, in the first stages of a Talmid Chacham, he has to learn the sort of the unvarnished Masorah. But what are the halachas? Then, once he acquires that, then he can be mafalpel and use svara and ask kashas from here to here, but he needs to receive the corpus in a very straightforward way. So he didn't think he could get that from Rabbi Kiva. So also Kamed Rabbi Shmuel, Gemar Gemara. Rashi, Mishnai Shekibim Rabboisov, which means he got the straight scoop. These were the teachings that Rabbi Shmuel got from his rebbeim, whether it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai or the previous generation. The Hodder also Kamed Rabbi Kiva Usvar Svara. Once he had Gemara under his belt, and here the context of Gemara is sort of the straight facts. These are the halachas that have come down from Moshe Rabbeinu. These are the Matayik mitzvahs. This is halach l'Moshe B'Sinai. These are the Kavachomer. This is what the basis is, etc. Later on, from Rabbi Kiva, he learned the concept of svara, of logic, and to understand other things from what you learned. And okay. Asra kasha, but kasha, that means the two brises, one says that Rabbi Shmuel answered, the other says Rabbi Kiva answered, and that remains a kasha from the two brises. Tanya. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, Rabbi Meir Haya Oimer, Lakol Matilin Kan Kantum Tochadyo. You can use this Kan Kantum for any ink, Chutz mi Parshas Sota. So he holds that when you write a Sefer Torah, when you get to Parshas Sota, you got to use a different ink. Rabbi Yaakov Omer Mishmo, no. Chutz mi Parsha Sota Shebemikdash. He held that Bichlal you couldn't use a Sefer Torah, regular Sefer Torah couldn't be, because that's not written for a specific woman. When they brought a woman up for the Parsha, for the Sota process, they would write a specific Megillah for her. So when they would write that Megillah, then of course you can't use Kankantum. But a regular Sefer Torah can have a Kankantum in the ink. And that's, in fact, the Gemara asks, my binayu, what's the nafkamina? Rav Yomi limchok laminat Torah binayu. Whether you can erase, whether you can use a stam sefer Torah and erase that parsha and have that be valid for the sota process. And hani tanoi ki hani tanoi, and the following machlokes tanoim is similar to Tanya. Ein megilos ksheira lashkos basota acheres. If you write a Megillah of Sota for one woman, you cannot use it for another woman. It's got to be specific. It's like a get. Just like you write a get for a specific woman, can't be used for another. And let's say for whatever reason they didn't use that Megillah. Let's say the woman decided to confess before she drank the water. So they wouldn't dissolve the Megillah. So they have this Megillah lying around. So could you use it for another woman? This Tana says no. However, Rav Chai Bar Yoshia Omer Megillah Ksher Lashkos Posota Acheres. He says that you can use it for another woman. It doesn't have to be Ksiva Lishma. Well, it doesn't have to be Ksiva Lishma. Then Rav Chora, the Gemara seems to be saying that that's the same machlokes whether you could use a Stam Sefer Torah. Since the Stam Sefer Torah is not written for any specific woman, so according to the Mandomer that says you need to have a specific woman in mind when you write the Megillah, you can't use a Stam Sefer Torah. The Rabbi Chai would say you could use a Stam Sefer Torah. That's what the Gemara wants to say. However, there's no raya that the same machlokes by the whether you can use kankantum over there by Parsha Sot is the same as the regular. It's a different machlokes. It means ad kan lekomer tanakama hasam by the tanakama of the writing it for one woman and not the other. Elakivan the intik l'shum Rachel sulohad mintik l'shum Leah. Fine, I understand that. Everyone perhaps could agree with that. That if you write it for Rachel, you can't use it for Gabi Torah. This stammer michtav. Listen, the Torah was not written for any woman. It was written stam to learn. So maybe everyone would hold a chanami de machkina. You could then everyone would hold you could erase it. And on Rav Nachman Yitzchak de Maloyi, that Akalam Rav Achai Bar Yoshia Hasam El de Ichtiv Mias L'Shum Soite Boilam. Perhaps the one who says you could use the Megillah Sota that you wrote for Rachel, that you could use it for Leah. Let's say you wrote a Megillah Sota just having in mind some woman who's a Sota, not a specific woman. So there might be cross usage. Avagabi Torah, the Islamic Ksiva. But there's no Havamina that when you write a Sefer Torah, you had in mind that that when you write the Sota Parsha, it's going to be for anybody. It's just for teaching. So Hachanami de la Makina, nobody would. So maybe there we would also have to write it in an ink that you can't erase it. So Freit the Gemara Velesle Rabbi Chai Bar Yoshia had the Gemara now seems to suggest that this is a parallel case to get. Doesn't Rabbi Chai is the one who said you could use one Megillah for Rachel, you could use it for Leah. What about, does he not hold to the Mishnah on this time because of get Lagarshis Ishto? The person wrote a get and then dropped it. Oh, no, Benimlach. He changed his mind. Umatzu ben Iro. And a friend saw him in the street. V'Amar, he said, listen, Shimcha kishmi, v'shem ishtecha k'shem ishti. You have my name, and your wife's name is also like my wife. Can I use your get? Pasul garishpo. So does Rabbi Chai not agree with this? The person says, Hachi hashta. There's no comparison. By get, I agree that you need ksiva lishma, because it says v'kosav law, be'ining ksiva lishma. Hacha. By sot it says v'asa law. The various processes have to be done specifically for her. Be'inin asiya lishma. Asiya didoz mechikahi. For example, erasing it has to be done when I come to erase it has to be done for this specific woman. But that doesn't mean the ksiva has to be for that specific woman. Amar Rav Acha bar Chanina. There was nobody in Rabbi Meir's generation like Rabbi Meir. How come the halacha is not always like Rabbi Meir? Again, Rabbi Meir must have taken on the characteristics of his Rebbe, Rabbi Kiva. It was very sharp. So he could give opinions on both sides of every story and make you believe that it's completely correct. Shehu oimer al tomei tor umar loponim. He would say, oh, this thing that's tomei, it's really tor. He'd give you reasons for it. And vice versa. Al tor tomei umar loponim. So sometimes when you're too sharp, the halachas can't follow you because they couldn't understand they couldn't understand clarity. Tana, lo Rab Meir Shmo, ela Rab Noharoi Shmo. They gave him a nickname, Rab Noharoi. V'lama nikra Shmo Rab Meir, Shu Meir einei chachamim ba'alacha. Noharai also means like gelichted, lit up. Why was he called Rab Meir? Shu Meir einei chachamim ba'alacha. He opened up the eyes. Now, some Rishonim learn that this is not a continuation of the same piece now that has to do with Rab Meir. It's somebody else named Noharoi, whose real name was Rab Nechemia. Other people say, no, this is all Rab Meir. He had multiple names. That it was Rabbi Elazar ben Arach who was Rab Meir. And that's why other people learn, no, this is referring to somebody else who used to be called Rav Noroi. Again, he lightens up the eyes of the Chachamim in halacha. On the Rebbe. Rebbe said, you know why I was sharper than my Chaverim? The Chazisa Rab Meir Machoire. I was a Talmid of Rab Meir, but I had not been advanced where I could be placed in a seat in front of Rab Meir. I only saw Rab Meir from the back. I never saw his face. If I would have had the opportunity to see him from the front, I would have been even sharper. Your eyes should be looking at your Rebbe. By the
way, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins like that, huh? That you have to sit in front of your Rebbe. You're not allowed to sit at the back of a Rebbe.
Right? When the Rebbe teaches, everybody should be in front of him. It's a halach in Yoredeya in Hilchos Talmud Torah, I think.
Torah, yeah, must be. Interesting halacha.
Yeah.
I wonder if that goes with the rabbis making a drosha in Yavne in the COVID time. People are sitting on the other side. They sit behind him, and he's giving a drosha. You're not allowed to. I'll have to tell him.
From this piece of Gemara, it's good.
Huh?
It's good. I agree.
Really, it's a halacha mefurash. You'll have to move.
Yeah, because by the way, you it makes sense because when you're learning by your Rebbe, so your Rebbe would put on certain expressions. He'd be upset. He would, whatever, you could learn a lot from facial expressions and how he says something, etc. So, absolutely. So the Gemara says that Reb Meir had a student, Sumchis. Sha'oimra kol davar v'davar shel tuma arboim u'shmona tami tuma. Val kol davar v'davar shel tahara arboim u'shmona tami tahara. He would give, 48 reasons why something that is, he's positing that it's tamei. He would give 48 reasons why he's correct, or vice versa, that it's tor. And not only that, Talmid Vasikaya biyavne, Shayim Ataris Hasheretz, B'mea v'chamishim ta'amim. Now the Torah tells us that the corpse of a sheretz, of the 8 shrotzim, a weasel, a chulda, the 8 shrotzim are, so the sheretz is metame. But he would give 150 reasons why it should be tahor. And Amar Ravina, it's interesting. So Yavne, remember, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in 70 CE, asked the Emperor Vespasian, Tein li Yavne v'chachameh. So the Sanhedrin moved at that time to Yavne. And Yavne was operative until about 135 CE, until the Hadrianic persecutions. Now, here we're given testimony that there was an old Talmud that knew 150 reasons why to be Matar the Sheretz. Ravina is in the last generation of the Gemara. It's in the year 400 CE. Ravina and Ravashi are the final editors of the Gemara. And he says, you know what? I'll give you one. That means out of these 150, one came down to Ravina. Ani adun vatarenu. Now, a snake is not one of the Shmona Shrotzim. Means when a snake dies, its corpse is not metameyu. Yet, a snake is the source of a lot of tumah. It bites people, they die, and all of a sudden you have tumas mace. It bites animals, the animals die, and has tumas nevela. So, it increases tumah, yet its corpse is tor. Sheretz shein memi sumar b'tumah l'kol shekei. A sheretz doesn't increase tumah, so certainly it should be tor. The Gemara says velohi. This doesn't work logically because ma'isa kotzba alma ka'avid. A snake killing is like if an animal stepped on a thorn and got an infection and died. So therefore, the fact that it's a snake, it doesn't. There's other reasons why an animal or an animal becomes an avela. It's just like stepping on a thorn. It's no worse than that, and there's nothing aspect about the nachash that's one way or the other contributing to it. So we know that Hillel and Shammai themselves only argued in 3 halachas. Now, after their death, the Beis Shammai and the Beis Hillel had hundreds of machlokes. And Sholosh Shonim Nechleku Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. And it became very bitter for 3 years. Halalu oimrim halacha k'mosein. Malalu oimrim halacha k'mosein. Yatsa baskol v'amra elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Baskol said, by the way, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, even though they're diametrically opposed, it's Divrei Elokim Chaim. It's not nonsense. It's Torah, and it's Divrei Elokim Chaim. The second thing the Baskol said is Halacha Beis Hillel. So the Chiniachar She'elu Velu Divrei Elokim Chaim, they must zachu Beis Hillel B'Halacha K'Moisen. Well, if they're both Divrei Elokim Chaim, what was it about Beis Hillel's approach that eventually paskin halacha like him? They did not stand on ceremony. They were willing to be embarrassed. In fact, they would teach not only their words, but Beis Shammai's words as well. In fact, they would introduce the sugya by discussing Beis Shammai. Like the following famous case. A person's head and the majority of his body was in a sukkah. But the table was in his house. Beis Shammai poised. Beis Shammai said that sukkah is not good. Beis Hillel said it's okay. Beis Shammai, wasn't this the Maisa Shalchu Ziknei Beis Shammai and Ziknei Beis Hillel Vakesh Rabbi Yochanan ben Achoranis, that the Zakenim of both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel went to visit Rabbi Yochanan. They found him sitting in this manner, with his head and his body in the sukkah, but the table in the house. And it was okay. There's no raya from there. In fact, they said, if this is the way you were sitting in your sukkah all your life, you never had mitzvah sukkah. So you see that Beis Hillel always introduced the sugya by discussing Beis Shammai first. Whoever lowers himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu raises. Whoever raises himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings him low. Somebody runs around looking for fame, or being a gadol, or he's not humble. Greatness runs away from him. If you run away from Gedula, the Gedula comes after you. If you push the time, it's not the right time to do something. If you push it, you won't be successful. You're patient, you don't push it. Sofo, showing slow. Things will happen in the right time for you in the future. Very interesting. There was another machlokas that went on for 2.5 years. You know what? It's better that a human being should not have been created. The reasons for his creation, they're more than those than the reasons not to create. Nimnu v'gamru. They ended up voting that it's really better that the person should not have been created. However, Achshav Shenivra, now that he was created, he should always check his ways and to improve them. V'amri law imashmesh b'mazav. Some say not yipashmet, like check after them. You sort of feel for them. Make sure that your actions are good, so that you won't fall prey to them. So we're going to learn tomorrow at 9:00. We'll pick up with this Mishnah so that we're in the sugya correctly when we learn tomorrow. Okay, have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos.